pretty much whenever Telltale Games nowadays says, "Oh, we're releasing this game," I'm immediately take my money, take my money.
Yep.
I will. So
Make it rain.
one thing that really impressed me, and a lot of people of my viewers can attest when I actually LP'd through these games, is they can even take franchises that I'm not really all that interested in, and I end up still loving the games that are based on that franchise. Because I never really got into Borderlands. I never really got into. I was never able to get into Game of Thrones. But as soon as I played those games that Telltale released on those franchises, I loved their games. And that was like a ridiculously awesome litmus test for me. And saying, if Telltale can do that with franchises that I'm not that interested in, then I don't care what they can make a game about anything, and I'll gladly throw money at them. And so they came. I think the most recent game that they said that they were going to do, which is a complete shock to a lot of people, is Minecraft story mode.
Yeah.
I am not a Minecraft fan. I tried playing the game, didn't really get into it, didn't really like it, and then people are like, Telltale's doing a story-based game on Minecraft. And I couldn't help but be pretty intrigued by that. Like, how are they going to pull that off? I don't care. I'm going to buy it and play it anyway. So just to see how they pulled it off, because they have made me a believer. I believe. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Their magical formula. What they put in my punch.
If they made a Justin Bieber game, would you play it?
I probably would, honestly. I probably would.
I probably would just for
probably
lulz.
Would. Just
I would for lulz, yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Okay, Brian, what's your opinion on Telltale Games and,
Or Telltale Games in general, Brian. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard you talk about it.
Have you tried any of them, or you haven't?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Oh.
I passed.
Yeah.
I passed, and I would advise you not to watch my top 5 games I don't like that everyone else likes video coming up probably in the next couple.
No problem.
Yeah. I figured this is why I love having you doing collabs with you, because you have different tastes than me, and I love it.
And I love that.
Yes,
I absolutely love that.
That's why I was like sensing it. I was like, I think Brian doesn't like Telltale Games, and I kind of wanted to ask.
I totally embrace anyone who has differing opinions, especially if they're differing opinions from like you said, that everybody else seems to like. As long as you are able to explain why you don't like it and are able to give your personal reasons.
I guess my problem with Telltale Games is that I don't mind games that require choices, because that's something like Heavy Rain or Beyond Two Souls did very, very well. I just feel that from what I've seen, there's even less gameplay, and I don't think the choices really account for something, because there's a second episode, and so these stories can only go so far. It's like no matter how much they weed out, they have to convert at a certain point, because it has to lead into the next installment, and that too has to be structured in the same way. So it can't be if you play the game differently for the first episode, and the second time you do the second episode, it's going to be a completely different experience than someone else that plays the second episode. And I think that's always been my just towards Telltale games.
I understand that. Yeah, I understand that totally.
Yeah. One thing that I always say, whenever I'm reviewing a Telltale game is that it's definitely not for everyone. Like, that's actually, out of any game, I feel like Telltale has a very specific audience. Like, so many people will tell me that they can't stand Telltale games, and then other people say that they love it. Like, and that's why I think it's really important to bring up anytime I talk about the game, that it has a very narrow audience. Like, there's so many people that it just doesn't work for them. What's interesting is I'm not a big fan of Minecraft either. I've never really been interested in it. I think it would be a game that I would like, though, but the thing is, I'm into so many games that take up too much of my time,
Yeah.
And I think that Minecraft is one of those games that would just eat my life away. So, because I would be that person that like has to get everything in the freaking game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm just not gonna start. But I think that Telltale Games can make it work. You know, from what I understand of Minecraft, it's not a story-driven game. It's like a loot and building game. But it will work because...
It's a sandbox game.
Yeah, it's a sandbox game. But the thing is, a lot of people were skeptical about Borderlands, Tales from Borderlands. And because Borderlands is an action game. And how are they going to involve action in a Telltale game that's about story? And they managed to pull it off. In fact, I would recommend that to people who aren't into Telltale games because there's so much action in it. So I feel like I will try the... I mean, I'm going to buy anything at this point that Telltale Games makes. And I hate saying that. That makes me sound like such a fangirl, but I'm in that mode. And I feel like it's okay to be in that mode and be able to accept when a game is bad, you know? Like, I was like that with BioWare for a while. Like, I was like, shut up and take my money, and then Mass Effect 3 happened, and now I'm not so much in that mode. And I'm honest about it. So, I'm like, you know, but I'll just see. You know, kind of skeptical, but I think they're gonna pull it off. Like, I hope that they make it like a humorous type of game, like Tales from Borderlands.
I think they will. It sounds like it will be. Yeah.
So, anything further to say about the Minecraft game?
Or do you have your next game that you want to talk about, Brian?
Yeah, I think the next game, and certainly one of the most anticipated games I'm looking forward to, is Mortal Kombat 10. Up for that. Mortal Kombat has always been my favorite fighting game. In fact, I think it's the only franchise I love, and I just love how it's continuing from Mortal Kombat 9, which rebooted the franchise after the Deadly Alliance trilogy, and I am real curious about how this new combat mechanic of each character having 3 different fighting modes and kind of having to learn each character. I think that's going to play just very well. And if you're a fan who's like a big fan of gore and innovative kills, then you can't get any better than Mortal Kombat, because they have some of the most creative kills you will ever see in a video game ever. It's just crazy.
I was really
what about you guys?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Play Mortal Kombat?
I was just gonna say I was really impressed that in the trailer's in game from what I've seen. And it was insane. Like, the graphics were incredible, and it looked more like a trailer than an in-game gameplay. So, it just looks pretty top-notch.
Yeah, I've been a shameless fan of Mortal Kombat since the original. So, Street fighting games in general, the next Street Fighter, which 5, I think, is coming out soon as well.
Yeah.
I think this year. So, both of those games are things that I've always been heavily interested in.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite character?
Who's my favorite character?
Yeah.
I want to say, I think Raiden's always been my favorite. I've always been a big Raiden fan. So.
How about you, Brian? Who's your favorite?
Yes.
I don't know.
All of them are your favorite? All of them are your favorite?
Just one.
Scorpion.
Scorpion? Oh, yeah.
Wow, then who's this sitting right here spearing Sub-Zero? Oh, look, it's Scorpion.
That's so
Scorpion's
freaking
a great
awesome.
character. Scorpion's a great character.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Sub-Zero being a good second.
Yeah.
And I think Melina's my third.
Yeah.
Scorpion.
Yeah, I'm not as versed in like the Mortal Kombat stuff. Like when I was growing up, I played a lot more Street Fighter, but it looks really impressive, and I really want to play it.
Who's your favorite Street Fighter character?
I forget what's her name. Is it Chun-Li or
Chun-Li?
Chun-Li, yeah. And I know it's like for a superficial reason, but when I was a kid, the reason why I liked her is because I wanted to play as a girl. So
yeah,
I always played as her. What'd you say?
No, it was like she was. I think she was the only female at the time until before they added Cammy.
Cammy,
just like
yes,
Sonya Blade.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure she was the only female when I was playing it as a kid, and which was really funny. Yeah. When I was playing Street Fighter, I was like maybe 9 or 10 at the time, and I went to Christian school at that time, and I had a bunch of like my siblings' friends come over, and I was playing it in the living room, and they were sitting there, and they were just like, "You let your 9-year-old daughter play this game?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's wrong?" And you know, they started kind of saying things to my mom. They're like, "You know, this is really violent." And then I just kind of looked up at them and I said, "You know what? My parents put me in karate, and they taught me that violence is something that you only use in self-defense. So I learned that there's a difference between reality and games." But I said that in a 9-year-old voice. So
in a 9-year-old way.
You know, yeah.
That's
but you know, like my parents, they let me play violent games, and I turned out alright. So
yeah. I know this whole violence, video games causes violence. I've been ripping out spinal cords, decapitating, blowing people's heads off, and swearing, using the F word since I was 5 years old. I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah. I think the cool thing is that my parents let me play those games, but they did so and were involved in parenting too. They were like, they were like, there's a difference between reality and, and I think that was a good thing is they noticed that I was a little bit like into the aggressive stuff, and then they put me in karate, and they were like, take out your aggression in the right way. So I think that was, a good way to go about it. So, Hark, what is your final game?
My final game is Resident Evil Revelations 2.
Okay.
Because I've always been a big fan of the franchise for the longest time. Resident Evil 2, I think, has always been my favorite. Because I loved the way that they told that story. Huge Leon and Claire fan. And so the fact that Claire Redfield is coming back for this one, I'm very excited for. And in addition to that, yes. Barry Burton. Barry Burton is back, straight from, because we haven't seen him since the first original. Since Resident Evil 1. So
it has been, wow.
Yeah, because when they first gave out the first trailer, you were introduced to Barry Burton's daughter, and she ends up being the one that's supposed to be partnered up with Claire. But then one of the more recent trailers, and so during that time, people were like, "Oh, does that mean you also get to play as Barry too? Because you get to, her daughter, his daughter is going to be there." And sure enough, it was confirmed in the second trailer that Barry Burton would be a playable character in this game, and I'm so psyched because I'm a huge Barry Burton fan as well. So,
tell me, how do you feel about them releasing the game in episodes? Because I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to wait till the whole game comes out. I think this whole releasing it in episodes is just a ridiculous idea.
I never minded. I guess it doesn't. I'm indifferent. I don't mind. I'm used to episodic games since, again, because I'm a big Telltale fan games. I'm used to episodic games. As a gamer who, I guess if you're a casual gamer, it's nice for them since they're able to play the game in digestible pieces. But then again, you could say the same thing about if you just had the whole game, you can decide to play the game in digestible pieces too. So I don't have a strong opinion. One way or another personally on it. But I can understand why other people would definitely prefer to wait till they were all there before playing the game from the beginning.
Yeah.
So
I would think that I would be worried. I don't know if I'm going to play this. I need to catch up with my Resident Evil lore. But I think that I would be worried about getting stuff spoiled for me if I didn't play, it as it came out. Because I know when it comes to Telltale games, like, I always have stuff spoiled for me if I don't play it, like, the day it comes out. Like, I had stuff spoiled for me I waited 2 days for The Walking Dead, the final episode, to come out because I wanted to let people play it before I played it. And I had super huge details spoiled for me. So I'm like, I could see why people would play it as it comes out, just because they don't want spoilers.
For me, I really liked episodic games for at least Telltale, because to me it's like, because there's that break, you have a chance to discuss the plot and discuss the story with other fans and other players, because you know that they don't know, like, you're all on the same page once you beat the first episode. You don't know what's coming next. So it's sort of like the same feeling that I got when I was reading through the Harry Potter books, because there's a huge following of Harry Potter books, and after you finish reading the latest book, then you come back and you talk to other fans and be like, so what do you think's going to happen next? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I enjoyed that feeling, knowing that I can do that with an episodic game like that, story-driven like Telltale. I couldn't do that with a game like Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yeah.
Because some of my other YouTubers, we wanted to be able to talk about it, but there wasn't like a natural break, because we were afraid to spoil the game for each other, because you can do things in different order in that game, and so that's where I actually like episodic games. It depends on the actual game and the actual story, the way the story is told. I don't know how they're doing this story, so.
Yeah.
What's your opinion, Brian? Because it sounded like you had a very big opinion on it. It sounded like you weren't a big fan of it.
I could see the benefits of it. It's just because I don't really have a lot of people to talk to it about in that way. It's like, just give me the whole story, and it's just like I guess one of the biggest examples of that is just like you with Harry Potter, and that's something I grew up with. So that's something, I think that's something that's kind of harder to do nowadays, because you have the movie, so it's kind of hard to avoid spoilers like that.
Yeah.
And I think for Revelations, because I thought Revelations did such a great job, kind of giving the survival horror feel of today's modern combat. I'm curious how this is going to play into Resident Evil 7, because I think that's what the Revelation franchise is. It's just going to set up what the plot for the official next chapter of Resident Evil is going to be. I know. Yeah.
I didn't realize that they had announced that they were doing Resident Evil 7. I didn't realize.
Oh, no, they haven't announced it, but everyone's kind of speculating that's because they haven't announced yet, is they're doing Revelations, and then they'll do next installment. That's how they did Revelation 6.
Because what I heard...
Because Revelation leads up.
What I had heard, at least this was several months or even a year ago, I had heard that after Resident Evil 6... that Capcom was planning on rebooting the series again and just cutting it, because people were saying that the plot has gotten so convoluted and it's just gotten so crazy that they were like, let's just start over again from the beginning and to retell the story again. But if they're doing another 7, then that's great.
The reason I'm sure they will do a 7th one is because of, I'm not spoiling this, but end of 6.
End of 6. No, I agree.
Yeah, that's why they would. If you're, I can see them doing one more to finish off.
Me too.
Storyline and then rebooting it.
Yes, because I agree.
By the way, I know that 2 is your favorite because 4 is mine. How do you feel about the current state of Resident Evil? Because a lot of people didn't like 5 and 6. I personally have had fun with them. I did not have any problems with them at all.
I know that the more recent Resident Evils became less survival horror
more action,
and it was more action, more like mow down as many zombies as you can. But for some reason, I also absolutely loved Resident Evil 6 because it felt like, I think the biggest draw the thing I liked about Resident Evil 2 storytelling is that you had 2 characters who were doing things in parallel to each other. And you could either start playing as Claire or you could start playing as Leon. And I didn't realize this at the time, but once you beat one person, you got to play it again with the other person and see their point of view. So you actually had 4 different scenarios, and I love that. So then when I played 6, you could do that times 4 because there were 4 different characters that were all doing stuff all together, and you ran into each other every now and then. And I did, when I actually Let's Played Resident Evil 6 with 4 different people. Like, I did a scenario with one person and another with another person, and we would exchange notes at the end because each of those 4 players played through the characters in a different order, because you can play through the characters in a different order. And we just talked about it just fascinated me which spoilers which parts of the story you were introduced to first versus based on the order that you did. So there was just a lot of it was a lot of analysis that you could make with that game, which is why I enjoyed it.
Exactly.
There was a lot we could talk about, and I ended up falling in love with 6 a lot, and it was rivaling my favorite. Resident Evil game of Resident Evil 2. So.
And I'll take it that you thought that Leon's campaign was definitely the best.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Because it was
you were actually killing zombies. Like that whole first section, it felt exactly like Resident Evil 2 with the modern day gameplay mechanics. That's why I love that section so much. It was like, this feels exactly like Resident Evil 2.
I think what was nice about the 4 different characters is they had 4. It was like playing 4 different types of games. Because Leon's was survival horror, and Chris was more of the action shooter. Ada was stealth. Ada was like the stealth one, and then Jake was like the beat 'em up, like final fight brawling kind of game. So there was 4 different types of games in one, and that was the other reason why I thought it was so brilliant, is that the gameplay just were slightly different with each character.
Exactly.
Gus is, what do you want from this year? Looking back at 2014, what were some of the pros and cons briefly, and like, what do you want in terms of this year? Because like for me, I felt like 2014 was extremely disappointing because it was like a really slow beginning of the next console generation, and it was just a slow start. So there wasn't too many stuff that came out. I think some of the more memorable games that came out for people was Dragon Age Inquisition. A lot of people say that was an amazing game. I really liked a lot of Telltale games that came out, and some good indie games came out. But not really like, I feel like it was a year that the AAA gaming industry did not shine. Like for me, independent games really stuck out to me. So I'm hoping that this year, with all these sequels that are really promising, that this will be a strong year for gaming. Like this will be a comeback year for the consoles too. Because I'm a console gamer, and I know that a lot of people tell me I need to join the PC master race, and I kind of, I agree. It is, you are the master race. I bow to thee. I sacrifice, make my sacrifices to thee, but I just cannot give up my PS4 because, and I feel like I spent enough money on my PS4 to not buy a new PC fanciness deal. But yeah, so I'm hoping that this is a comeback year. So what do you all think?
Well, you pretty much took the words right out of my mouth, because I didn't think 2014 was a bad year, but for that to be kind of the beginning year of like the technically current gen systems, I thought it was very lackluster. I don't think this had as good as a start as, say, like the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 when they first came out with their first year. And to my shock, I was actually this is the first console I ever actually got at launch. And I was shocked how little I was playing it. I mean, my PlayStation 4 collected so much dust, and I was still playing my PlayStation 3 more than ever. I've had it for a year, and I only own just these 4 games for my PlayStation 4. And I purchased...
all I've played are remakes. So,
And it's
Grand
ironic.
Theft Auto and Last of Us.
Older games are more impressive than newer games.
Yeah.
So hopefully this year, I think stop making games for the last gen systems, because we don't want another situation like what happened with Shadows of Mordor. So we are permanently in the current gen system. Only make games for the system. Show what the system can do. Take advantage of all it is capable of. And if you're going to hype up a game, live up to it. I don't want to have to go through another Destiny again, because I bought into the hype. Yeah. Something I usually don't do, and I was severely disappointed, like many others.
Yeah.
So my perspective, I guess, is more from the PC gamer, because I'm predominantly more of a PC gamer, not necessarily because I favor PC games over the console games, but just out of necessity, since as a Let's Player, it's super easier for me to record off my PC than my console games. So it's more because of that. But since I've been playing predominantly PC games, I didn't feel, I guess, the lacklusterousness as much in the year 2014. And for me, 2014 was Dragon Age Inquisition, because I've been waiting for years for this game, and it was definitely like the game that I most anticipating for the longest time. And when I got it, I was not disappointed at all. BioWare hit that thing out of the park, in my opinion. So for me, that was enough for me to really like 2014. But as far as other games concerned, I mean, I think it really was, like you said, Kathleen, a great place where the smaller companies like Telltale and indie games excelled. Like, some of the games that I played that were very memorable were games like were games like Tale of Two Brothers, Broken Age, sometimes Always Monsters, the A dating sim that I just played coming out on top. All of those are indie games, and those definitely left a very lasting. Gone Home is another one. So a lot of those games, indie games, left very lasting impressions on me, and they really. Before, in 2013, I don't think I played nearly as many indie games as I did in 2014, or smaller game companies like Telltale Games. So that's pretty much how I saw 2014 in a nutshell. 2015, as I said before, I think is pretty much not only the year of the sequels, but the year of sequels that are supposed to end many of the franchises like Batman and Uncharted and all those other games. And I'm hoping that they will be able to, complete and provide closure for those games properly and effectively, and not have another Mass Effect debacle.
Mass Effect to a point.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that for the sake of the people who have been following each of these franchises for the longest time, that they will get the closure that they believe the games deserve, that their beloved stories deserve. So.
Yeah. And I think I've heard from a lot of Nintendo people that 2014 was a good year, and that's I'm sad that a lot of people that had the Wii U said that they played a lot of amazing games this year. So I know that they're also like, haha, should have gotten a Wii U. Because they did, their investment did pay off, because a lot of great games came out, and it seems that everyone that I've talked to that is a Nintendo fan enjoyed everything that they played this year. So that's really good.
Lots of great things.
And the interesting thing about last year is every game that I played that I really enjoyed, most of those games that I enjoyed were games that came out the year before. Gone Home, I think, came out in 2013, the end of 2013.
Oh, did it? I thought it was 2014.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Also, or maybe the beginning of, I don't know. But also, I played Saints Row, and I fell in love with it. I loved it. It was hilarious. The gameplay was great, and I wish that I had played that previously, And it seems like a lot of the games that I played were games that came out. And also, there's a lot of remastered versions. So I think that this year, hopefully, we'll see less, as you said, Brian, like less cross-gen gaming. Because the decade-old console systems cannot hold up to the next-gen consoles. And it's sad because there are games on my 360 that look way better than Shadow of Mordor did, but it's the new system that they use. I forget what it's called, something with an N, but the system they use to develop that game works way better on next-gen consoles, and it just doesn't hold up on last-gen. And I think that we're getting gypped with last-gen. I think that people, even though it's hard to afford a new console, people need to start to invest into new consoles by now, because it's been, this is the second year it's been out. So hopefully that will end so that people that are playing games on last gen consoles will stop being gypped and get less quality stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like the Xbox has kind of dropped down to $350, which is why I'm going to be getting one soon. And I'm pretty sure they'll come up with a PlayStation 4 Slim that'll be a cheaper price, a lot easier to get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean the Xbox. See, that's another thing too. Like, the console wars were pretty heavy, like in 2013, 2014. But I feel like Microsoft is starting to catch up.
Come back.
Because they did something really smart during the holiday season where they did a temporary price decrease. And because of that, their sales have really upped. But the thing is, like, I'm pretty sure the numbers, like, Microsoft hasn't even gotten to half of PlayStation sales, I'm pretty sure. PlayStation sales are insane. And they sold more just in this year and a half than they sold of PlayStation 3 the entire time it was out. So which was good because the launch of PS3 was really weak, but they came back. So I'm thinking that maybe even Microsoft will have a comeback because PlayStation 3's initial release was pretty weak and they came back with the PS4. So maybe Microsoft will make a comeback this year. And especially because they have some promising exclusives that are coming out and hopefully won't disappoint. So,
What are your guys' thoughts on the Oculus Rift?
I'm not really a big fan of this whole, goggles thing because I'm telling you, my biggest fear is that I'm gonna be playing this thing with goggles and like someone could come in the room and I won't even know it.
Yeah.
And anything can happen.
Yeah.
And I guess there's some games that you could benefit from that, but I'm personally not a big fan of that. I don't need to have something strapped to my eyes in order to enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah, the Oculus Rift has never really been alluring to me. I guess, game companies have always tried to get into this next level of immersion, whether it be like the Kinect or I think like the Oculus Rift is kind of in that category. Totally. But I feel like we haven't, a lot of hardcore gamers aren't willing to like make that leap to like having gaming, the experience being something physically different. Like so much of us are used to either playing on our computer or playing with a remote, and it seems so different to be immersed in it in a different way. I don't think many of us are ready to make that leap. So
right. I guess my question was like, do you think that maybe not this year, but do you find, or how soon do you think that video gaming is going to start trending towards that direction?
Yeah.
I guess. Was because I'm not sure, because I definitely see what you mean, where some of us are pretty set in their ways, and like that much of a leap we may not necessarily be ready for that kind of a change. But
I think also like the problem is that a lot of these types of games don't really have good PR. Like they don't seem like something you want to dive into. I have yet to see a Oculus Rift trailer for a game where I'm just like, oh my god, I need that.
Gosh.
And I think there's something a little bit, even though it's meant to make you more immersed, there's something that like almost takes you out of the experience to have like goggles on, like it's something, there's almost like this what's the word for uncanny? There's something like uncanny about it. And I can't like put my finger on it, It's kind of like when graphics get more advanced and something's a little bit not human about the playable character that kind of throws you off. And I think it almost comes off as uncanny to me. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And I think it might just end up being like a trend, like the PlayStation Move or motion controls. It's just like something they'll test out. It'll eventually fade out, and then we'll just come back to how we usually play games.
Yeah, but who knows? Like maybe the next generation will be different. Maybe it's like it's interesting because like gaming has kind of grown up with us, like with our generation, like we are so set in our ways because like we were the ones that grew up with gaming. Like generations before us didn't. And so like
but it's still evolving.
Yeah, it's still evolving, but it's like we're still the target audience. Like the target audience back then was kids and now it's our age.
Now it's
it's like we are still the target audience. So like when they find a new target audience, it's gonna change, you know? Like when my nephew is the target audience, like things are definitely gonna change, you know? And my nephew plays as many games as I do, if not more, so
it'll be inevitable, and there will be a point where we are just gonna be like those like new kids and your newfangled gadgets. Your newfangled gaming gadgets. In my day, you know, we didn't have whatever.
Oh yeah, this reminds me of
just fine for us. It was just fine for us, and
it reminds me of that line from Back to the Future 2. Hey, this is perfect. It's 2015. Remember in Back to the Future 2, where it says, "Hey, you have to use your hands."
Yeah,
like baby's toys. Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be very horrified of that day when we're no longer the audience that gaming industry is going to cater to, and they're going to be catering towards the younger audience who grew up with the Oculus Rifts, and we're like, well, those are the people that were, you know, if you can't change with the times, then, you know, but it's going to happen.
I hope I'm not like one of those bitter people, because like bitter people piss me off now. Like when people are like, girl, are you kidding? Like, you started with the N64, like, I mean, come on, like, you are such a whippersnapper, and when people say it to me, I'm just like, shut up, what was I supposed to do, start playing games before I was in the womb? Like, how could I have gotten access to consoles, like, before that? How, like, was I supposed to play Pong? Like, you know, there's people that are, like, mad at me because I haven't played the original Pong, you know?
Exactly.
And so, I feel like it's going to be like that eventually.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I'm going to be like, oh, man, you guys never played the original Mario? You never played the original? And it's like, it's gotten to that point where most kids nowadays, they haven't played. And, like, not even Mario N64 was their first Mario game.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, so hurts so much. Hurts so much.
I don't know. I'm already on the fence of how I'm gonna raise. Like, if I ever have kids, it's like where do I get them to start playing games? Like, do I like try to find an antique? Super Nintendo.
Yes.
I was their age. Like that way he'll, you know.
You know, I've been like thinking about. I need to get the cords for my N64 and get it hooked up again because I feel like. Since my nephew, my 6-year-old nephew, is a fan of Mario, that he really needs to experience that. You know? Like, we could play it on the Wii, we could play Mario Kart on the Wii, but it's not the same. It's, like, not the same when you gotta, like, have the experience of, like, getting that cartridge, blowing on the cartridge, trying to get it started, you know? Yes, exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other final thoughts?
No, I'm good. This was fun.
Yeah, I'm definitely would love to hear what all of your viewers are anticipating in 2015 as well.
Yeah.
Would love to hear what they think, and you know, if there's more added to this list, by all means, hopefully they'll comment on it. So.
Yeah, I mean, if we didn't include anything that you want to talk about, put it in the comment section. If you agree with us, put it in the comment section. I like this to be a dialogue.
Yeah. These are just our opinions, guys.
Don't be too serious.
Don't be hating. Don't be complaining and hating at the same time. Don't be complaining.
I want to thank Hark and Brian for joining me for this video. I'm going to put a link to their channels in the description, so you need to check that out. They have awesome channels. Where they talk about games, and you know, Brian has some really interesting content, and you know, he's big into Batman, which I really appreciate. And Hark just has really entertaining Let's Plays that are just super genuine, and that's hard to come by in the Let's Play world these days, and I love that. Like, he's just super genuine fanboy. So yeah, definitely check out their channels. Thank you for joining me. And we should go.
We should go.